That's a really difficult question. Um, for me, I think it's it's within the classical music, but it's kind of like the avant-garde, experimental. But then I also don't know what would then be the difference between avant-garde and new music. So, you know, it. I guess another thing that comes to mind for me is that new music tends to have living composers, which is kind of cool. I didn't even know there was anything like new music or avant-garde music, to be honest. I just thought classical music, it's classical because it's old. So for me it was it was a surprise. But I also think, yeah, if someone asks me what kind of music do you do, I tend to say avant-garde, because I feel people who maybe don't know new music, the term, or lots of things in classical music, it sort of describes, that what I do can be a little complex on the ear.
Coldest hand.
I heard it first, I think, after I had self-released a piece that I wrote for school in my third year in my jazz studies. And I let someone listen to it, Amahl, who I had just met, to explain what kind of music I did, because I didn't know what to call it. And then he said, "Oh, I think I know a place for your music, and it's within the new music scene." And that was 2017. And I was like, I have no idea what this is, but please, yes, a place for my music, that would be great. Yeah. And that's how I ended up there, which was great. It was great because I never knew. I just knew, I'm studying jazz, and what I do isn't really jazz. It's not pop. It's not, like, I didn't know. I just knew this is what I'm making, and this is how I hear music. I had a friend who described a piece that I wrote. She said, "Oh, it's like a painting. You can't just listen once. You have to really, listen a few times." And I was like, yeah, I think that's a good way of describing any sort of music that might not, draw you in easily.
Hands have made the temperatures.
I guess that just that's where they would have me. That's where I could, do what I wanted to do without anyone telling me, like, "Oh, this is weird," or "Oh, this is making me laugh," or "What are you doing?" It was just, yeah, cool, do more. Yeah.
A welcoming place.
Yeah, welcoming place. For me, it was definitely a welcoming place. Yeah. I moved to Canada already in 2009.
Oh.
Took a long time to get permanent residency, and life as a fresh immigrant isn't easy. And I studied jazz voice, which I did. I did the bachelor starting in 2013, and I graduated in 2017. And that's where, my now good friend Amahl said, after hearing that piece that I sent him, he said, "You should apply to TCML, Toronto Creative Music Lab, as a composer." And that's what I did.
And you made a community here.
And that's when things started rolling for me, and all of a sudden I was writing. And then I got my first commission, I think 2 weeks after the show.
Low and slow and go.
Yeah. So I guess for me, as a composer, I teach on the side, which I love doing, and I actually have a teacher's degree. I mostly teach voice beginner piano. I also do some mentoring I've done some mentoring at the University of Montreal. I've done some mentoring through Continuum Music, the Teen Composer Award winners, which I also love doing. So I do that a few times a week. And my writing, I don't write on a daily basis. That's not how I work. When I have a commission, I tend to sort of just think about it first for a long time. I just go like, what's the subject I want to tackle? For me, it's really important to have something I write about. Any sort of subject. I need to have I think that's really important for me, a subject, a feeling, something I want to convey. So then I brainstorm that, and I always bring like I always have a little like book thingy with me with a pen in my purse, and I can just sit on the subway or something or on a bus and just go like, okay, what am I feeling with regards to this subject? I also write text for every musical piece I write. There's text accompanying every single one. Sometimes the text is actually part of the performance, and sometimes it isn't, but there's always text. So for me, the music and the text go hand in hand. Sometimes I first have more text and then I have the music. Sometimes I have the music and then there's more text. But a lot of that just happens sort of when I'm not sitting at a desk and just while I'm doing other things. And then at some point I have, my big sketch and the things that I want to do. And then I go and I sit down, and I usually work in a combination of, a software, notational software. And if I do electronics, I will use Logic, Studio One, something like that. And I just make the piece.
The piece makes itself.
Yeah. And I don't like working over sort of a long period of time. I like to do like a lot in a short amount. But I do need a deadline. I am not someone who just writes a little bit every day, because then I can't. I need to be immersed like really hard in what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So that would be, kind of how it goes. And I don't know when those days happen. Since I have given birth to my son, it's a little bit different, because I do need to sometimes just say, okay, getting a babysitter, and then for 2 hours I'm just gonna have to make it happen. And surprisingly enough, that also works. It's just not what I prefer.
But you make it work.
Make it work, yes, yeah.
Where movement won't resume.
I always write.
Wow.
Always. It feels equally as important for my creative process.
Incredible. And does it make you feel exposed?
Yeah, but it's okay. That's just part of what it is, and I don't know if it makes me feel more exposed, because musically, that's also for me at least, like a way of trying to convey something, feelings, emotions. So I don't know if adding the text makes it more vulnerable, or maybe even less sometimes.
I get that.
Yeah. For me, they're equal. They're just part of my process. Like I said, sometimes you will hear the text, sometimes not. But the musicians will have seen it. My music doesn't come without words, and my words don't come without music. Someone asked me if I also wrote poetry just like that, but I don't. There's always music. Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I right away thought about a work of mine was performed and there was someone just crying after, which to me it meant a lot because it was a dark piece, and it was a piece that for me signified a time where things were very uncertain and I was very scared, and it was great to maybe have someone feeling it on that level. And that was actually my work for TCML, I think, which is called Systems. And then I had I guess also a work, I Am the Ribcage, which it was for percussion and electronics for Thin Edge, and Nathan performed it. And someone said that's how I feel when I have my my bad bouts of depression. It's exactly that. And I was like, wow. That's also, it's just, I guess it's nice to hear that other people can feel what I was trying to express myself. And I think that's important for me. Yeah.
Yeah.
So those are two, I guess then that's audience. That's not like a review or
Right.
anything. That's audience, just members of audience. Yeah.
Of course, we just